This is an introduction to the final and really painful part of the model. The allocation, when you think about it's going to be about interest during construction, sometimes I call it IDC, sometimes I call it I don't care. The interest during construction is it's fundamentally an allocation. It's not fundamentally, that's what it is. We're going to allocate the amount we pay to the institutions between interest during construction and interest expense. Now, if it's interest during construction, it's got to be depreciated. If it has to be depreciated, you have to figure out if you've got multiple projects going on, how much of the interest you're paying to the banks is going to be allocated from an accounting standpoint to interest during construction and fees. And the way to do that is to set up a construction work in progress account for the interest during construction. Well, you set it up for the non-interest during construction first, use that to allocate, and then once you've got the interest during construction, then you allocate it and make a plant and service balance. It is painful, but it does work. And then you retire the plant, compute accumulated depreciation, and finally, when you get to the balance sheet, you have it all put together. This is a long video, I'm sorry. I should have probably split it up, but I didn't. The second thing to do is the cash balance account. This cash balance account is really painful. The question is where you're going to get the money. You can get the money from borrowing it or issuing equity, put it in your project, or you can take it if you have positive cash flow. If you have a lot of cash and you don't need to keep such a high balance, so you always start with how much you need. If you don't need the cash balance, you can take it away somewhere. So I have three different lines in the cash flow statement where we can add to the cash or take it away. Now, when you go through the cash flow statement to figure out whether you need it here or whether you're going to take it away down here somewhere, I can't even find it. Last cash balance used. This is when we need more of it. Okay, and this is this is where we're going to take it away. Okay, and this is where we use it. Okay, I have a little bit of a problem with the title there, but the point here is you have to work through it, and this video is horrible in a way. It's tedious, it's disgusting, but it goes through kind of going to a cash flow waterfall, getting the subtotals, using minimum and max, connecting the cash flow with the cash balance. It's difficult, it's painful. You can do it yourself. You can have 5 different rules. You use the minimum and maximum. That's what this is all about. You can again switch the video off. Enough of that. If you want to see the tedious and boring kind of details and try to do it yourself, go ahead. But it's not an easy issue. Okay, here goes the video. Okay, I want to get finished with this thing I'm trying about making a whole set of videos about going from this uh, uh, solar project to the very end. Kind of wish the last one was the end, but we're into this place in a model. It's just the hell. It's just horrible. It's the place where you have all these little adjustments to make. Now, the first one is the interest during construction. So to illustrate this, I'm going to first only put one facility in here. Remember, if I just copy this, then later if I want to copy it backwards and put the formula back in, I can just copy it here. And then of course later we can also add a increase in the portfolio going forward. Okay, so I am going to zero these out. Okay, and oh, I sniffled like Donald. The now let's kind of go to the financing analysis. So we have some financing, and then after the financing, we have positive cash flow. So it's kind of a standard project finance, a single project finance. And what I also did is I made this one 10 periods, okay? So now we can see what's really happening. The when we go to the interest, we have all interest during construction and then all interest expense, and that's because we made this, we did together, fine. The construction work in progress balance, and then that once the plant goes into service, that goes away. And again, the key thing here was to uh, keep track of how much how much is the plant in service, and how much is the capital expenditure. And the plant in service comes later on. In this case, we had the constant kappa x, and if we even go up further, you remember there was some S curve that had a 10%, and we kind of went backwards, and it worked. Okay, and we looked at the cost per kW. We saw how much capacity goes online. Here's the little capacity going online. And then this is the amount that we placed in service, multiplying the cost of the capacity times the capacity, and then this goes backwards and determines the capex. So that's the general idea of this. And then once we have that, we can allocate this. Now the problem was we computed depreciation on this IDC, which was a painful kind of thing to do. And when we added IDC, this should have been IDC placed in service, and not just the IDC we took. Now to get that to work, we put the we put the I'll just I added the IDC and the fees that were taken during during the construction period, by definition, basically. Fees, a little exception. And then we just say, okay, let's look at the opening balance and add the capex to that. That's like the capex, that's like the closing balance before we subtract the plant and service. And then take the amount of the plant placed in service divided by that number. So in this case, when we have one single project, it becomes 100%. The plant placed in service becomes 100% here. And I did something else. I said, well, if it's zero, if there's no QIP left or construction work in progress left, just take the last ratio. Don't make it to zero. That's part of the if statement. And then I just take the last number plus the amount of IDC and I don't care, IDC, fees, and subtract the amount of placed in service from the last period, not this period. And then multiply the amount of the plant placed in service by the IDC and the fees. And then what happens is it just accumulates, and we get the whole amount placed in service, and there's an extra little fees because I had this little fix on the circular reference thing. And finally, we can take we take the IDC and the fees, and we take the prior balance and subtract the amount placed in service, and we have the construction work in progress for IDC. Okay, and that has to be added to the balance sheet. I discovered that because, of course, I didn't put it in. And then then the final thing is, instead of just putting the IDC that we take the IDC that is played in service. Okay, so we just put this in, and then I forgot to compute the retirement. And the retirement is, I'm going to save the file because this is a place you could really screw up. If the period is greater than this, you press this one a few times, then you offset and you go up and take the amount you placed in service, you keep it on the same row, and you put a minus on the... Okay, and then okay, and then we go across, and eventually, hopefully, this goes to, oops, see, I did something bad here, because I didn't subtract it. Okay. Okay, and then finally we go through here. Please go to 0. Okay, there we go. Okay, and so that's the IDC pain. It's a pain, it's a pain, it's a pain. And then on the balance sheet, you have the equip balance, construction work in progress balance for the regular plant. I'll call this the base plant. And then put the equip plus the construction work in progress for the IDC and the fees and the gross balance, and subtract that. So now you see that we only subtract it when we put it in. Now there's another problem in this model. That model, that problem I kind of fixed. Now I'm gonna put this back to what we had originally. Okay, so now we have our 3 different projects, and now it's a little trickier. Somebody told me, in a kind of snobbish way, this modeling, it's not so difficult. It's, it's kind of an easy thing to do, and maybe, but I think that's a bunch of rubbish. These kind of things that we have now are tricky. The interest, in this case, look, we have I can say we this time. There's a minus. There's a negative cash flow, and it makes a negative cash sweep, and it kind of, I don't know. This is net cash flow for the sweep. I guess this, I'm looking why that sweep was so little, and we should, there's something wrong, it looks like, but because we should have, I should have swept all the cash flow. Add cash, oh no, this is the cash balance, excuse me, that's okay. So what should have happened is, the first thing is, this amount, I can't even talk about this. It's really horrible. Um, we I should have put some cash, trapped some cash up here to make sure that we can cover at minimum the interest. Okay, that's like a debt service reserve account. Okay, um, and then when we had a negative amount, we could have taken that out of the cash account. And what I'm worried about, and what I'm looking at this, I'm a little worried that, well, what happens if we look up to the cash account? This is our minimum cash we really want, and this 15,000 doesn't cover the 100,000. So there had to be more cash. There was just no way to pay this interest. So um, maybe we need 2 times the future interest expense in the cash account or something, or that's a debt service account, a reserve account with a cash sweep won't really help. Um, or we can kind of just put some initial working capital into this, um, or we can put both. So I'm going to pause this video. You can see that I'm a little nervous about this. I'm going to pause this and do a little bit of this, otherwise I'll kind of waste your time. I think I want you to see the issue, and then I want you to try this yourself. Okay, as I told you, this is the painful part of the model. Now, what I did is I added another. First of all, I said, okay, let's take 6 months of debt service. I first tried to push it forward. Excuse me, that gave me a circular reference. So I said, okay, let's just take 6 months. Now, that of course should come from the assumptions. So let's do it in a reasonable way. So let's put minimum cash balance months of interest. Okay, and we'll just put 6. What a sigh, but I have to sigh here. That, okay, now, once we have that, then we say, okay, well, we need both the 5% of the revenues plus the interest in a cash balance account. Question is, how do we get there? We can take any cash flow we have left over and try to top it up. Uh-oh, this isn't even there. And then we can just a minute, I was looking for the closing balance. And then we can, well, then we can just say, okay, no, we don't have enough. So we're going to top it up from the funding, and that's in the cash flow statement. I should put in, you get it from in cash flow statement. Okay, that's, and then we take away some, we were having some negative cash flows that were causing a negative cash sweep, which might be okay. That's kind of just like an additional funding of the debt. But instead of that, we can put the put the things in. Now, the first thing is to say, okay, well, we want to take some money here, and when we have the cash balance, I'm going to try to go slowly without up and down too much. This again is the key thing to do in the cash balance. How much do we need to top it up by? So when we need to top it up this much, where are we going to get the money? We don't have any money, so let's just take this from the equity and debt we were going to contribute. So let's put it here. That's where we get it. And the question is, how do we get it? And what we just want to do now, what this minimum says is, if we're not spending any capex, I don't want to get money. I don't want to get money and just have new equity funding a little bit of cash flow somewhere. And then we only limit this to how much we need. So that's this maximum of 0. Okay, and that's the first one. Then we say, okay, let's take this money we have and let's see how much comes from equity and debt, and then we better subtract the interest we pay that's not included in this IDC here. Now that causes a negative cash flow because of the way we funded. You know, I could have maybe put the interest up here. I think that might have worked, but we don't want to fund the interest over here after we've finished, okay? So then we say, okay, well, if we have a minus, let's just take money out of the account. Now this is a tiny bit tricky because the amount we take out is not only the opening balance, but it's the amount we put in up here. Okay, and then we see how much is left over, and we want to make sure that we've got enough cash flow. So the other lesson here is just to have a whole bunch of subtotals. And then if we have a minimum or something, if we have there, we can take some money out of the cash account, and that gives us more to pay off a cash sweep. Okay, that was not a great explanation, but it's a whole bunch of min-maxes, and you just have to, I don't know, I work through each one separately, and it, you know, if I'm doing a class or something, it looks all very easy, but frankly, the real world is a little bit tough. When you have this closing balance of cash, I probably would put a positive test in here. Oops. Oh, shit. Okay, and then I'm going to call this closing cash balance. You'll see why in a minute. Shouldn't sigh that bad. And let's just make sure this is greater than some really little number. Okay. Okay. Oh, come on. And then we want to see again if we put and whether all of these things are true. Okay. And what I suggest here is pressing the F11 key kind of to see what happened to the cash balance. And I guess we could kind of explain this somehow. I'm not sure that we needed some cash to pay the interest, and then it eventually goes down. A more important graph might be the, and I think I'm going to put, no, I have many other videos on how to make graphs and all this. I don't want to spend too much time on this. And the other one, I think we really should make a presentation of in this kind of model. You know, I a lot of times talk about the cash flow waterfall, but this time I'd really want to show people the kind of what the debt perspective is, how much is being built up and how much is being paid down. So let's call this closing debt balance. Okay, and then what we're going to do is the real question is what happens in these scenarios to our debt balance and our cash balance and our returns and everything else. Okay, so I think okay, and This is debt balance graph. Okay, so this video is some kind of